Okay, so I want to start today with a little challenge for you.
Oh, okay. I'm ready.
I want you to picture a band name. You know, they're usually pretty straightforward. The Beatles, Metallica.
Right. The Rolling Stones.
Exactly. But here's the catch. To write the name of the band we're deep diving into today correctly, I mean, to be legally and aesthetically accurate, you strictly, absolutely require punctuation.
You're starting us off with a grammar lesson.
I am starting us off with an attitude check.
Mm.
Because the band we're talking about today is named Awesome.
Okay.
But not just awesome. It's awesome with quotation marks around it. Explicitly. That's the legal name.
It does set a very specific tone right out of the gate, doesn't it?
It really does.
I mean, it suggests a certain level of irony or maybe a kind of defensive layer of self-awareness. It's a bold move to name yourself something that implies greatness, like the best, but then you put it in scare quotes.
To undermine it.
Exactly. To maybe undermine that very greatness. It's like they're winking at you before they even play a single note.
Yes. It's like they're daring you to judge them. It's saying, we are awesome. Well, technically. Maybe.
Yeah.
You decide. So welcome to today's deep dive.
Let's do it.
We're heading to the Pacific Northwest, specifically the rainy, coffee-fueled streets of Seattle in the mid-2000s, to uncover the story of this 7-member entity that refused to be just a rock band.
And that refusal, I think, is the key to this entire investigation. This group, Awesome. They describe themselves as part band, part art collective. And that distinction between being a band that plays clubs and a collective that stages, happenings, that's the friction that really drives their whole story.
So what's our mission today? We have a stack of notes here, some great archives from The Stranger in Seattle Weekly, notes on their albums. We are going to unpack how a group of fringe theater actors accidentally or maybe purposely created a musical project that generated serious rock payoff.
Oh, while singing about some truly bizarre stuff.
I mean, we're not kidding when we say bizarre. We're talking about songs about what? Technical difficulties and cell death.
And bees. Don't forget the bees.
Oh, I can't wait to get to the cell death ballad. But let's start at the beginning. Usually when we do a music deep dive, the origin story is kind of the same, right?
Yeah, a few kids in a garage.
Some disaffected kids in a garage. They meet at a record store, bond over Led Zeppelin, get a van. But Awesome. They didn't start in a garage, did they?
No, they did not. And to understand why they sound the way they do, you have to look at where they came from. They weren't prowling the dive bars of Seattle looking for a record deal. They were inhabiting the black box theaters. Awesome started as a cabaret act. These were 7 experienced fringe theater actors in Seattle.
So stage lights, not strobes. Now, for listeners who might not frequent the theater scene, when we say fringe theater, what are we actually talking about? This isn't like Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, definitely not. Fringe theater is usually experimental, low budget, often nonlinear, and incredibly intimate. It's all about breaking the fourth wall. These were performers who were used to inhabiting characters and engaging with an audience in a way that's very different from a lead singer just ignoring the crowd.
I see.
And the interesting thing here is that our notes say that eventually their identity as a band totally eclipsed their status as individual actors. But that theatrical DNA, it was always the operating system for the group.
And there was a specific event that kicked all this off, right? A catalyst. They didn't just wake up one day and decide to form a band.
There was. It was around October 2003. Several of the future members, they played together in a tribute show. Now, usually, tribute shows are for these huge acts. The Beatles, Queen.
Yeah, Zeppelin.
But the band they were paying tribute to is so telling for their future sound. It was They Might Be Giants.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Yeah.
They Might Be Giants. That is the ultimate smart, slightly nerdy alternative rock touchstone.
It is. It's music that's technically proficient, musically complex, but the lyrics are whimsical, literate, often really funny. If you know They Might Be Giants, you know they sing about historical figures, particle physics, nightlights.
Right.
So if you're a group of theater actors looking to raise money, which is what they were doing, for Seattle's Open Circle Theater, They Might Be Giants is just the perfect aesthetic fit.
It really bridges that gap between performance art and pop music, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
It's music for people who read a lot of encyclopedias.
Precisely. So they do this tribute show, and I'm guessing it goes pretty well.
It must have triggered something because that energy just coalesced into something original. Their very first performance under the name Awesome, with the quotes, happened just a few months later, February 6, 2004.
And looking at the notes here, that first gig wasn't the full 7-member lineup yet, right?
Right. It was just 4 of them at first. John Ackerman, Evan Mosher, David Nixon, and John Oswald. And look at the venue. This is crucial. They didn't debut at the Crocodile or Numos.
The famous Seattle rock clubs.
Yeah, where grunge was born.
Yeah.
They debuted at the Annex Theater at a monthly cabaret called Spin the Bottle.
Spin the Bottle. I mean, that just screams experimental theater variety show, doesn't it?
It does. It places them firmly in that performance art world. They weren't trying to get signed to Sub Pop. They were trying to entertain a seated cabaret crowd who might see a juggler 1 minute and a monologuist the next.
So they were just a bit in a larger show.
Pretty much. But the bit got bigger. By June 30, 2004, we have the first full 7-member performance.
Okay, and where was that?
That was at the Jewel Box Theater in a Belltown bar called the Rendezvous. Again, a very specific kind of venue. The Jewel Box is tiny, ornate, velvet curtains. It feels like a 1920s speakeasy.
So it's a space designed for intimacy and storytelling, not for a mosh pit.
Exactly.
So we've got the timeline, but I want to talk about the vibe, because you have these theater people playing instruments, and when you hear theater actors forming a band, I think a lot of us instinctively cringe a little.
Oh, for sure.
You imagine something overly dramatic, maybe a bit cheesy, musical theater trying to be rock.
That is the bias they were absolutely up against. But there's a great quote here from Lane Suplinski, who was the artistic director of On the Boards, a big performance center in Seattle. He said something that I think just perfectly captures the tension of this group.
I think I know the quote you're looking at. He said, "If they are not rock musicians, there is rock payoff."
Rock payoff. I love that term. It's such a fascinating metric. What do you think he means by that?
It implies a visceral reaction. It implies that even if they don't look like a rock band or act like one or dress like one, they hit you in the gut like one. It means the energy transfer is real. It's not just, polite applause. It's actual excitement.
Exactly. Japlinski even compared them to the Polyphonic Spree.
Oh, that's a perfect comparison. For those who don't know, the Polyphonic Spree was that massive choral rock group from the early 2000s.
With the robes.
Yeah, they wore those cult-like robes, had about 20 members, and just sounded like a euphoric explosion.
It suggests a wall of sound. When you have 7 people on stage, you aren't a power trio like Nirvana. You are a choir. You're an orchestra. You can create these sonic layers that a normal rock band just can't. You can overwhelm the audience with harmony.
But the audience didn't know what to expect at first, did they? I mean, imagine walking into a cool Seattle cabaret, holding your drink, and seeing 7 guys squeezing onto a small stage who call themselves awesome.
Well, there's a fantastic description of this by Brendan Kiley from The Stranger. He wrote a piece looking back at that time, and he described the audience as initially being privately skeptical, but here to be supportive.
I think we've all been part of that audience.
Totally.
You're there to support your friend's weird art project, you're holding your drink, clapping politely, and just hoping it's not embarrassing. It's a very specific social contract. You're ready to forgive mediocrity because you like the people.
Right. But Kiley says that skepticism transformed into a state of shock.
Because it was actually good.
Not just good. Keeley used these very specific, unusual words to describe the music. He called the songs sophisticatedly crisp and architectural while staying warm and invitingly poppy.
Okay, architectural. That is not a word you usually hear for a local band. You hear gritty, loud, fast, maybe lo-fi. You do not hear architectural.
No. What does that say to you?
Architectural implies design. It implies a blueprint. It suggests that every note, every harmony, every instrument was placed there for a specific structural reason. It's not just jamming.
It fits perfectly with them being theater veterans, right? In theater, you don't just improvise a 2-hour play, you build a scene. You construct a narrative. It seems like they approach songwriting the same way.
But then he contrasts architectural, which can sound cold or academic, with warm and invitingly poppy. So it's smart, but it's not cold. It's not some academic exercise you can't dance to.
That's the rock payoff Chaplinsky was talking about. If it was just architectural, it might be impressive but boring.
Like a math rock band.
Right. And if it was just poppy, it might be disposable. The magic, according to these reviews, was in that combination. They used complex structures to deliver really catchy hooks.
So they have the sound, they have the critical acclaim, but they didn't just play concerts. Because of this art collective background, they did productions.
And this is where the band really defies the industry standard. Usually, a band writes 12 songs, records an album, and tours. Awesome, they staged experiences. Their first big production was called Delaware.
Delaware, and that started as a multimedia stage show before it was ever an album.
Right. And later, in 2010, they did a huge production called West at On the Boards. But if you really want to understand how deep the weirdness goes, we
Right.
have to talk about No Signal.
Yes, No Signal. This was 2006.
This production really highlights their non-linear storytelling. The source material says their theatrical pieces often had minimal or non-linear narratives. It wasn't boy meets girl.
And the Seattle Times reviewer, Branjean Davis, gave a list of topics covered in No Signal that just, well, it kind of broke my brain a little bit.
It is quite the list. Okay, let me read this. No Signal addressed technical difficulties, recurring dreams, cell death, regeneration,
Yeah.
and bees.
Bees.
Bees and cell death in a musical production.
It's fascinating. It brings us right back to that. They might be giants influence taking complex, scientific, or just mundane topics and elevating them through music. But cell death, that's a little heavy for a Friday night out.
It's heavy, but it's also absurd. And I think that's the comedy element coming through. If you write a serious, earnest rock ballad about regeneration and bees, you are walking a very, very fine line between genius and madness.
Which leads us to the question, who are these people? Who has the audacity to write a pop song about cell death?
We need to look at the roster. There are 7 of them. John Osbold, John Ackerman, Kirk Anderson, Basil Harris, Evan Mosher, David Nixon, and Rob Whitmer.
It's a big crew, and when you look at their day jobs or their professional backgrounds, the whole architectural nature of the music starts to make perfect sense. This was not a group of slackers. This was a group of intellectuals and craftsmen.
Let's start with David Nixon.
David Nixon is a philosophy professor at the University of Washington, Bothell.
A philosophy professor in the band.
Suddenly, lyrics about existential dread or abstract concepts like technical difficulties seem a lot more grounded in academic inquiry, don't they?
Absolutely.
Having a philosophy professor in your rock band just changes the conversation. You aren't just singing about heartbreak, you're singing about the ontology of heartbreak.
Or you're deconstructing the very concept of the breakup song while you're singing it.
Right?
It adds this meta commentary you just don't get from your average garage band. And then there's Rob Whitmer.
Rob Whitmer is the sonic architect here. He plays a ton of instruments, accordion, clarinet, sax, bells, but his profession is the key. He is a professional composer and sound designer for theater.
See, that explains the crispness the critics talked about. If you have a professional sound designer, someone who understands how audio shapes an environment in a play, of course the music is going to sound balanced.
Exactly. A sound designer knows that you don't just turn everything up to 11, you create space. You let the accordion breathe so the clarinet can be heard. It's brain power applied to rock music. You have a philosopher for the thematic depth, and a sound designer making sure the sonic landscape is perfect.
And we can't forget John Osbold.
No, he writes most of the songs. And in 2011, he won a Stranger Genius Award.
For those outside Seattle, can you just contextualize that? What is a Stranger Genius Award?
The Stranger is like the cultural arbiter of the city. The Genius Award is a significant grant and recognition given to artists who are really pushing boundaries. It validates that this wasn't just a hobby.
Right.
These were highly capable artists applying their skills to a format, the rock band, that they sort of halfway rejected.
That's the irony, isn't it? They reject the label. They name themselves awesome, in quotes. They bring in philosophy professors and sound designers. They sing about bees. And yet, they end up integrated into the actual music ecosystem.
They did. They didn't just stay in the cabaret, they crossed over.
I was surprised to see the list of bands they shared bills with. These are not theater troupes. These are legitimate heavy hitters in the indie scene.
Absolutely. They played with Harvey Danger, they played with the Long Winters, they played with the Presidents of the United States of America.
The Presidents of the United States of America. Now, that's another band that walked the line between humor and rock. Peaches, Lump. Those are silly songs that rock hard.
It is. And sharing a stage with them places Awesome firmly in that lineage of Seattle rock. Seattle is famous for grunge, Nirvana, Soundgarden, very serious, very dark. But there's this parallel track of Seattle music that's alternative, a bit humorous, quirky, but musically very competent. Awesome fits right into that pocket.
And the ultimate seal of approval, they played Sasquatch Music Festival.
Which, for a Pacific Northwest band in the 2000s, was the mountaintop. Sasquatch was the Coachella of the North. It's at the Gorge Amphitheater, the stunning outdoor venue. You don't get booked at the Gorge for Sasquatch if you're just a joke act.
No, that puts you in front of thousands of serious music fans.
So they really managed to have it both ways. They got to be the art collective doing weird shows about cell death on the boards, and they got to be the rock band playing major festivals.
It's a rare feat. Usually, the industry wants to pigeonhole you. If you're too art, the rock clubs think you're pretentious. If you're too rock, the art theaters think you're lowbrow. Awesome. Managed to straddle that line, probably because the quality, that rock payoff, was just undeniable.
It really circles back to that first quote, doesn't it? If they are not rock musicians, there is rock payoff. They force the world to accept them on their own terms.
And those terms included quotation marks in their name.
I still love that.
It's such a power move. We are awesome, but ironically.
Or maybe we are awesome because we are defining what that word means for us.
That's the philosophy professor talking again.
Perhaps. But looking at the trajectory from a fundraiser tribute band to a Genius Award-winning collective, it's a testament to the idea that you don't need to follow the standard playbook to succeed.
They didn't need the garage. They didn't need the cool haircuts. They just needed a cabaret, a philosophy degree, and some accordions.
And a willingness to sing about bees.
Always the bees. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of awesome, it leaves us with something to think about with how we consume music.
It does. We often rely on labels to tell us what to like. This is a punk band. This is an indie band. Awesome defied the label. They fought the rock band tag, yet they delivered everything a rock band could want.
It makes you wonder, does knowing the background of the artist change how you listen? When you know the bass player is a philosophy professor, do you hear the song differently? Do you give it more credit? Or should the pop just stand on its own?
It also raises the question of where the line between performance art and a concert actually lies. If the music makes you dance, does it matter if the intent was architectural? Does it matter if the band is secretly making fun of the concept of a band?
That's the question we will leave you with today. Go listen to some awesome, don't forget the quotes, and decide for yourself. Is it art? Is it rock? Or is it just
Yeah.
awesome? Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
See you next time.